Other than noticing a strange arrangement of letters and seemingly pointless numbers, what else might you see? How about scientist names, like the familiar Einstein as Einsteinium, but who is Mendelevium named after? You may remember this from a middle school science course, or on someone's shirt you saw from a week ago. This intricate graph is called the periodic table. The creation of it, however, was not so periodically arranged. Many advanced men from all over Europe took a step closer into the belief of these elements and that they could be arranged in a way relating one to another. Dmitri Mendeleev was the first person to arrange the elements in a logical set of rows and columns. The development of the periodic table turned over a new stone for scientists, creating an easy and efficient way to accurately estimate the many characteristics of even undiscovered elements. It also allowed for the more precise organization of each element by physical traits and atomic weights. Thank goodness Mendeleev was such a genius to craft quite this revolutionary concept. But first, let's talk about how much went behind this table. Were there plenty of men to first even attempt an order to the elements? Yes. Was it hard to find a consistent recipe for the organization? Of course. Was it worth it though? But for sure. There were 3 men before Mendeleev according to the RSC, or Royal Society of Chemistry. First came the French geologist and mineralogist Alexandre Béghier de Chancourtois, who was born on January 20th of 1820 and died on November 14th, 1886. At the age of 18, he became very smart in the world of sciences and was the pupil of 3 famous French scientists. In his middle-aged years, he finally developed a 3D model of a periodic table, standing almost as tall as a person, with around 60 elements. De Chancourtois called his table the telluric screw because of its appearance and how the inner tube could spin, showing each classified group by rows in a spiral. Nothing was done to advance it, however. Why? Because the publishers who wrote the article for his amazing work totally abolished it by describing his 3-dimensional model in confusing ways since there was no illustration. The common person shrugged it off as nonsense, and there was no recognition for at least 30 years until it was later found by more modern scientists. A replica about 1/3 of its actual size was created in the late 1920s by scientists and historians of the Science Museum in the United Kingdom. Next man to make a step was Johann Wolfgang Dobereiner. He was a German chemist and lived from the 13th of December in 1780 to March 24th, 1849. He is known for the Dobereiner's triads, which was a form of grouping the elements into trios by similar characteristics. Dobereiner developed it in 1817. Before this, he had a life as a science professor and was even known for inventing a lamp using his advanced knowledge. Seems like this guy might finally be able to create a working system, right? Wrong. The problem with his method is that it only worked for a small fraction of the number of elements that were discovered at the time, so naturally, his method proved unsuccessful. After Dobereiner, a man with a similar plan came in. His name was John Newlands. Newlands was a British chemist and was born on November 26, 1837, who died on July 29, 1898. He took great interest in Dobereiner's works and used it as inspiration to create his own set of organizations. With great analyzation and his talented knowledge from being educated at the Royal College of Chemistry, he developed the law of octaves. The law stated that any given element will exhibit analogous behavior to the 8th element following it in the table. This meant that the first element in each row would be alike to the last put in its row. There were a lot of problems with this method, though. First, his table was created before the discovery of noble gases, so they didn't fit in. Secondly, he didn't expect there would be need to leave space for new elements to come. And third, to keep the pattern consistent, he was forced to cram multiple elements into the same box. For these reasons, the Chemical Society couldn't agree to put it in the papers. Well, that was quite the crash, but not for one resilient and brilliant thinker. Dmitri Mendeleev was a Russian chemist born in Siberia in 1834 and died in 1907 in St. Petersburg. He lived a much healthier life than his family, but not compared to the average person of the time. He was the youngest of a quite large gathering of siblings. At the age of 13, the family glass factory was burned to the ground and his blind father died. His mother, Maria, finally decided that she would acknowledge Mendeleev for his love of scientific academics and tried to put him into an advanced school, the University of Moscow. Unfortunately, they didn't allow him for the fact that he was from Siberia. Maria took him and two of his siblings to St. Petersburg, where they would finally get accepted into the main pedagogical institute. Tragically, he lost both his sisters and his mother to tuberculosis, but that didn't get to him. Instead, he saw it as an opportunity to show himself and become successful for his family and their hard work. He went to a meeting concerning many highly educated scientists and chemists. The meeting was held in September of 1860 in Karlsruhe, called the International Congress of Chemists. Here, a man named Stanislaw Cannizzaro had discovered an atomic weight system which he had passed out to everyone there. According to an article written by Manasari Kaji from the Tokyo Institute of Technology, Mendeleev studied it intensely and wrote a paper on the system and the Congress meeting. Returning to the schools he taught at, he started writing textbook after textbook after textbook. This was from 1861 to 1868, where he wrote his best textbook, The Principles of Chemistry. Using the information he gathered in this textbook, he began to create a table in early 1869. Mendeleev used Cannizzaro's atomic weights and wrote each one down on a set of cards along with the element's name. This is how the periodic law was born. This law stated that the organization of each element should be based on atomic weight. 3 days and 3 nights passed without sleep. Mendeleev was exhausted. Finally, a terrible snowstorm hit, grounding him to stay in the house. Dmitri Mendeleev hit a deep slumber but continued to vividly play with this deck of cards. He called it chemical solitaire and began laying out the cards just to see where there was a pattern. Professor Al-Khalili explains in a BBC interview about the creation of the table. Right there and then, it struck Mendeleev. He saw a perfect fitting table and arose from his dream to set it up. He had finally found a periodic table without huge flaws. One thing he quoted that he remembered throughout the creation is that we must expect the discovery of as many as yet unknown elements. He made sure to leave space for future elements, which was the key to success. This was the turning point in chemistry history. This table could even be used to accurately describe elements that haven't even been discovered yet. Dmitri could describe attributes like melting point, texture, and more. Dmitri Mendeleev had eagerly published it by sending it to the Russian Chemical Society, making it into papers. The word was spread everywhere. Fast forward to the 1900s, some uses were made of the table. In 1913, an English physicist by the name of Henry Moseley used Mendeleev's table to conduct his own studies. He was able to predict the discovery of 4 more elements. He also changed the periodic law, explaining that atomic number is more important than using atomic weight. 1961 had the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory discover its first element, number 103 lawrencium. This laboratory is known for discovering the most elements, with a whopping 16 discovered so far. They constantly show their understanding of Mendeleev's table by the way they use it and by predicting the traits of elements and their reactions. Many uses have been made of this wonderful development. Classrooms teach it daily, constantly reminding you of Mendeleevium. Now you know who it's named after. It could be on silly t-shirts or in the news about a new element being discovered. There are currently 118 elements in the table, but there's always more to come. The elements to a successful table are thinking differently and specially, building upon others' ideas, and always believing in creating a difference in scientific history to provide a periodically perfect future.